go ahead and get started. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand. I'll set the invocation. Miss Lucy Johnson, would you say the pledge of flag? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for giving us this opportunity to come and do business for the city of Kingston. And Lord, bless everyone who's not with us tonight in their travels around this country. And Lord, just thank you for everything you've given. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the council tonight? All right. Seeing none, we'll move right on. First of all, Happy New Year. Welcome, Mr. Thompson, to your first work session with us. We will try to be as gentle as possible.
Thank you.
So, for discussion of imposing charges for customers within 500 feet of existing sewer lines. Mr. Bowling, Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll touch on this, and of course Kevin can expand on it as well. And the city attorney's also had an opportunity to review the issue, so I would welcome his feedback as well. But this is something that we've been talking about internally for a while. As you know, and I outlined in the memo, Section 18203 of our municipal code states that that we can mandate that any customer within 500 feet of a sewer line upon notice hook up. We can also, it also dictates that any customer within that distance shall be responsible for the payment of sewer charges. That's been on the books for many years, hasn't been for whatever reason enforced. This is something that came to our attention not too long back from the state, really, and as we started having conversations with people who were on septic and weren't tied on to sewer, and the question being why are they not on? Why are you not enforcing this? So it really got us to thinking, started digging a little deeper into it, and of course, we also saw it as a pretty significant loss of revenue that we were not collecting on. And in talking about it, Kevin and I, and this probably goes back 6 months or more that we've been talking about it, we feel like it's in our best interest to enforce the policy, as we have on other individuals. We do have quite a few places out in the city or outside of the city where sewer is available, and people haven't been required to tap on and haven't been charged. I know you were given a list a while back that had addresses where that was applicable, and we can get you another copy of that if you don't have it. But we bring this up because obviously we don't need council approval to enforce an existing ordinance that you've already passed. That said, there's no doubt going to be some people upset about this, and that's going to be communicated. So we wanted to have the discussion before we move forward. Our plan as it stands now is to send a letter out to those customers giving them notice that this is going to happen. We're not necessarily looking to force people to tie on, and I don't think the ordinance says that we have to, but we do feel like our interpretation of the ordinance is that it does mandate that those people be charged. And we feel like either the ordinance needs to be enforced or it needs to be changed. So that's why we wanted to come to you before we move forward. So obviously if you want to change the ordinance, that's certainly at your discretion to do that. But if the ordinance is on the books, we feel like it needs to be enforced, and that's in the best interest of the utility. Kevin, feel free to expand on that, and I'll also yield to the city attorney if he wants to answer any questions or give you his thoughts on that as well. But
The only question I got is, how long has this been on in our municipal code?
I believe, from the best I could tell, 1991, I think, is how long it's been on there. So why it was never enforced, I don't know.
David, I have a question. Is this not a state ordinance? Isn't it?
So the state law says that you can. The state law, basically, the way I interpret it, and again, I would yield to the city attorney. I know he's looked into that as well, but the way I interpret state law is it says that we have the authority to do that.
Okay.
I don't know that it necessarily says that we have to do it, but
I was just asking for, when we get when the citizens ask us questions, to have as much information as we
Sure.
can. So, I mean, that's another explanation we can offer
Sure.
to them.
Sure, and there could be more law on that I haven't seen, but just the law that I've seen definitely grants us the authority to do that. And again, like I said, it's been on the books for many, many years, and for whatever reason hasn't been enforced. But as long as it's on the books, we feel like we ought to do it. I mean, we have other people who have been held to that standard, and we haven't always had sewer outside the city, but now that we do, and we're even expanding that a little farther, then I think it's a valid time to discuss it. So.
Do the other cities, Harriman, Rockwood, Oliver Springs, do they have that, or do you know?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
So
About every other utility does the same.
I know that we did in Oliver Springs. I can't speak for the others, but that would be easy enough to look up. But it's.
So are you saying that if you can't afford to tie on right now, that they're just going to be charged a fee, or do they have to tie on?
My position, and the way I interpret the ordinance, and all I'm wanting to do is follow the ordinances on the books, but my interpretation of that says that they have to, any customer has to tie on if we notify them that they have to. I'm not advocating necessarily doing that, but I think we ought to be charging them per the ordinance. Now, if they want to sign on, I mean, I know if it were me and I was going to be paying for it anyway, I would definitely want to do that. But that's going to be more of a financial burden on somebody, and it may be that somebody has a brand new septic tank and they're not going to need it for 20 years, and I don't think that person ought to be forced to waste all that money.
I was worried about the people, because they could cost you up to $6,000, $7,000 or $8,000 just to tie on. And
yeah, I agree.
Some people can't afford that.
I agree, and I think the burden of being charged sewer is a lot less than having tie on. So no, I agree with you on that, and we're not advocating to do that, but I think certainly any of those people that would want to sign on to hook up would be able to do so. But
Let me just add to that, Philip. What the state says is, or the stance that the state's taken, if you have a field line there, they're not making you get off of it. But if that field line does fail, the state will not give you a permit for repairs. That's when they force you over onto it. Most utilities that I've spoken with that has this in place, they're sort of what we're asking for. They're collecting the rates, and they're not forcing the customer to tie on until they need to, or the state forces them to. And I think they're of the opinion is it's not if you're coming, it's just when you're going to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, if it's been on the books since 1991, it's just an ordinance that we need to enforce, so.
I mean, and obviously this has been on the books. We've added a lot of sewer lines since that ordinance was passed. So, it could be very well that, when that was passed, everybody was in compliance. And we've just added, more lines over the years since then. For example, Gallagher Road and other places, and it just, for whatever reason, fell through the cracks, and nobody realized that this was in here. So again, don't haven't been able to put all those pieces together. We just want to make sure we're doing the right thing going forward, and so that. But again, we wanted to bring that to you first to make sure that you all don't have any desire to do something different. So
I don't see anything, so.
Can I just add one thing to that also? And I haven't even spoken to David about this, just because it just now hit me. But with us doing the additions to the West Ridgecrest, adding sewer up there, the Ward Road, and the O'Berry, I just think maybe it might be better for us to go ahead and send those letters out to now that we're getting ready to go in that direction.
That's.
If one of those addresses comes up, I just want everybody to be aware of that, but I think we just send them all out at one time.
yeah, that would be.
That's you guys.
Yeah, that would be my thought as well, that, once we realize that you all don't object to this, then we'll send out a blanket letter to everyone, giving them 60 days notice or what have you, that this is going to happen. And
Get ready.
But based on, say, I hadn't looked at mine in a while, if your water bill was $80, how much would the sewer be on that?
On an average 3,000 gallon water consumption a month, you're looking at about $39.68 for the sewer. And I just sort of use the average of 3,000 gallons across our system. Of course, it's gonna vary from house to house, but
Yeah.
like I say, just average about $40 more a month.
Does that then give them the, trash pickup service?
Most of them, most in the city have it.
You wouldn't-
Even out on Gullahard, they have,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't, nobody outside the city has trash pickup. but-
Right,
but
okay.
Any in-city customer would have access to that, so.
Mr. Attorney, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Mayor, I would agree with David's assessment of this. From my research, it is most certainly in the Kingston Municipal Code, and then Tennessee Code Annotated supports this. This question was brought up to MTAS, on February 1st, 1994. MTAS affirmed with case law that it is legal to do this, and this was reviewed last in April of 2021. It hasn't been reviewed since. It's still good case law, so I would defer to David on that the ordinance will be legal.
One way I saw an explanation that, and I didn't print it out, but wish I would have, but really explained it well. It said, if you build a new road, every citizen in town contributes to the cost of that road, whether they drive on it or not. And it applied the same principle to, if you put a sewer line in, whether somebody or not, that cost has to be subsidized among all customers, whether they utilize it or not. So that when you think about it in that context, it really kind of makes sense why all this was done in the first place. So.
All right, here comes the devil's advocate.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at this, this is something past 30-something years ago. Is that not kind of like, taxation without representation? I mean, because they're paying for a service that they're not getting to use. Just the same as it goes back to, we talk about filling pools up every year, and we can't get an ordinance passed to adjust that. Well, I mean, it's kind of going, the same direction.
Well, I think the difference would be, in this case, they're paying for a service that they choose not to use. And, the sewer's available. There's nothing stopping them from using it other than the fact that they haven't tied on. So, we've never denied anybody access, and I don't guess legally we could. So that would be my thought, at least, would be that, the service is available. We're leaving it up to them to choose whether or not they want to utilize it, but it would be no different than you may not go to the park, but you pay taxes to support that park. So,
But and I understand that. I do. Mr. Hamilton, you got something?
Well, I was just gonna throw this in there, Mr. Mayor. It's just like Mr. Nix out on Highway 70. He wanted sewer for a long time, and we did not have the ordinance to allow him to do that.
Right.
But now that we passed that ordinance to allow him to tie onto that sewer, I think sort of supplements what David's saying. It's there if you want to use it. It's just sort of like a water line. If it runs in front of your house, there's nothing that says we force you to get onto it. But if you want water, it's there for you at any time.
But there's also nothing that tells us that we're going to charge them for it if they don't.
The state's
Besides this ordinance.
States, and David hit on this just a little bit, Mr. Mayor, the way the state looks at it. The state has explained to me that the reason it's a little different between the water and the sewer is they say because, and as we went through doing these studies for grants and everything else, the state's explanation is whether you're on it or not, or whether it's coming to you, when it comes to you, or whatever, you still need to pay for it. You need to help in it. I see exactly where you're coming from on the water side, but they look at it a little bit different from the sewer side, I think, because they think, well, you're gonna spend all of this money to put it in, and there's that service to them at any time they want it. They need to help compensate it to keep the maintenance up on it for whenever they do tie into it. and the state's telling them, as I said a while ago, when it comes down that that field line fails,
There's no
option.
doubt. Yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
We know that's a fact.
Right.
Mr. Brown, do you have anything? Silence is good. All right, anybody else got anything?
And again, I just want to reinforce the point that, you know, we're just looking at the ordinance as it exists now. So, you know, if there is a different point of view than what was in place in 1991 or whenever this was passed, then again, you know, our position is we either need to do it as the ordinance calls for, or change the ordinance. I don't want, you know, and we'll follow your direction as Mr. Thompson's predecessor used to say, we don't make policy, you all do that. I fear somebody had to say that tonight.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're not want to do it, I think we ought to change the ordinance as opposed to just ignoring the ordinance. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm having phone troubles there. You know, I think that if we don't charge and follow the state law and the city ordinance, I think that we need to revisit the extensions and the sewer lines that we've already passed.
Okay.
I think that, or at least I was under the impression that we would be gaining revenue on the water, one out at the old pilot and one up at Ridgecrest. So, you know, if you enforce that one, I think you keep from enforcing the other.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. All right. It's an ordinance that's out there. Unless anybody wants to change it or anything, then you have to enforce what's out there.
Okay. Do we want, if y'all want this on the agenda for next, I mean, if there is a
Why?
change, I mean, nothing needs to be on the agenda unless one of you wants to change it. So.
Yeah, and I don't see anybody that's willing to change it. Now, I've got some issues with it, and we're going to take a room full of people.
Yeah.
Just getting ready.
Well, and I think, you know, to touch on what Councilman Brown says, you know, we have made investments recently in sewer lines under the premise that it was economically feasible to do so.
Right.
And I think, you know, going back, you know, there's been a lot of revenue lost by investments that were put in and those customers weren't tied on significant. And, you know, that means that other people's rates have had to go up because you're not collecting everything you should be collecting. So, you know, I think it's only fair to do it as long as the ordinance is what it is. But again, you know,
That's it. The
Any
ordinance is
ordinance.
what it is.
yeah, any ordinance can be changed, but until it is, you know,
Right.
we'll
It's
proceed.
enforced.
So if you don't tie on, what would be the charge?
It would be
'Cause I'll
like,
probably get a lot of them questions.
yeah, it'd be based on your water usage as if,
That's
you
what
know,
it's
just
saying,
like it is now.
3,000 gallon, it equal out somewhere around 39.68 a month.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it would be the same as if you had sewer, you know, since it's not metered anyway, it's based on your water bill. So it would be the same for those customers too.
So basically, like Ward Road, if we get those put up, I think, what, there's 7 houses out there?
Yeah.
I think
It
so.
takes
I
20,
think seven or nine, something like that, yeah,
if it's 7, it'd take 26 months to pay for what we just put in.
Mm,
I mean, that'd be money coming back into her.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll move forward.
All right, item 5, discussion of ordinance 2301-1001, changing the name of Loveless Street to Jack McPherson Way. I think you've got the ordinance that explains it right here.
We do. The city attorney was gracious enough to draft this. I didn't want to have to ask the honoree to draft his own ordinance, so we appreciate that. And this is just a technicality. You know, we've talked to 911, the Postal Service, and we need to go through a couple steps to formally do this. So that ordinance is attached, and if that moves forward, then we'll handle the rest.
We'll put it on the agenda. All right, item 6 and item 7, amending the budget for City of Kingston 2022 and 23, and for the water, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gale and let her address those issues.
Yeah, first of all, you had a new copy tonight. I inadvertently tried to move the entire amount of the auction sales that we had collected for the police department this year, and we've already moved some of that. So I'm sorry about that mistake, but we've reduced that, and I'm glad that was recognized. And a lot of these amendments are for the resolutions, for the body cams that y'all passed last week, the police vehicles that are up for resolution, and the public works vehicles. We also have the community development partners, professional services billing that we have each month, and I'm just trying to move enough money to cover that for the remainder of the year. And the police department got their state grant from the THSO, and that's a reimbursement grant, so we just put that back into their budget. So, and then as far as the water department, we just had some engineering fees that have to do with the ARPA projects that are coming up. So that's pretty much the explanation on all of those amendments. And, you know, I don't know if there'll be changes by next month, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I don't have anything with what you've got going on. Anybody else have anything? Okay. So the next item is discussion approve allocations $87,964 from the American Rescue Plan Act funding for 2 Ford Explorers and related equipment for police department. Mr. Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor, and Chief Washam's here if you have any specific questions. But you know, if you don't object, I'll just touch on 8 and 9 while we're in here. These are 2 items that were tentatively on the preliminary list we submitted to you when we first started discussing the direct appropriation ARPA funding. This is for 2 vehicles for the police department, 2 for public works. We'd like to submit both for your approval. Both will be purchased off the state bid, so we don't have to bid them out. You have in your packets the resolutions that we have to pass to go along with that, and we'd like to move on those with your approval.
The only question I have is that the only place we could find them? We could not find those vehicles local?
That's where the state bid is with that dealership. They have the state contracts.
So that like Jerry Duncan doesn't have a state contract for those vehicles? No,
it's with specific dealers. If we go anywhere else, we certainly have that option, but we'd have to bid it out to do that.
Does anybody got anything on those 2 items? Okay. Pretty short agenda tonight compared to last month. So we'll go around the room and see if anybody's got anything. Mr. Bell, do you have anything? Mr. Childs? Ms. Johnson, do you have anything?
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge during the cold snap over the holidays, particularly Christmas Eve night, Kingston United Methodist Church was significantly damaged. I'm sure you're aware of it. And I also like to commend the water department because I know you all were very busy over the cold snap. But they had significant damage to their building, and the elementary school has offered to let them have their worship services there. It's going to take like 6 to 8 weeks to repair their church.
Anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Brown, do you have anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
The only thing I got to report, because I'm going to hopefully beat you to it, is our bathrooms are here. So, yeah, that's good.
They are here, and we'll have them. We had them out front, but then it started raining and it was dark, and we were afraid somebody would run into them in the parking lot. So we have them out at the garage, and we're gonna get them labeled and get logos and everything, and we have them all ready. We'll bring them out and let everybody look them over. But very nice.
So I guess our first event will be the Spring Street Fest.
I would assume so. Yeah.
Okay, good.
But yeah, they're really nice.
While you've got the floor, do you have anything else to report?
Nothing much. I just was gonna let you know, and you can be looking this through your email. Now that these 2 items are on the agenda, I'll send you out an updated spreadsheet showing where our ARPA funds, where the breakdown is currently on all those commitments. So I have that. I just didn't want to send it out until I saw if those were added to the agenda or not. So.
Okay. Anything else? Ms. Kelly, do you have anything else? Ms. Jackson, do you have anything? Okay, we'll try to get that scheduled. Yeah, I guess, so. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything?
Nothing from me, Mr. Mayor.
With that, this meeting's adjourned.
You get that figured out? Got to figure it out now.